This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel. Hello, Ryan.
Dave, I haven't seen you in like 2 days.
I know, this is a very nice midweek surprise. And also, by the way...
Did you miss me?
I desperately. We are desperately also trying to figure out some summer vacation plans, and nothing is working. And there's a solid chance I'm going to have to go to London for a couple of days, like in between, like on our way to where we really want to go. So I may be forced to see you in London. That's the
excellent.
Apparently that is what the gods want. And so
excellent. I'm so excited.
So before you know it, you may be stuck with me. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So yeah, alert security at your show, because there's a man with a duffel bag showing up. Yeah.
All right.
So that might be happening. But anyway, yes, good to see you on this fine midweek, lovely Wednesday. Yet another rainy day here in LA, which is just
you guys
slowly driving me insane. But yeah. Should we jump right into it? Because we got a pretty great show, dare I say.
We're very excited tonight. Yeah. So
what's new in props? And the honest answer is, personally, not much. But and this will probably be public by the time we get to this. But this is exciting. Little scoop. We've got a big Julian's Hollywood auction coming up. We believe at the end of April, right?
April.
End of April,
we
think.
Yeah.
Can't quite say what we saw. We got a little sneak peek of a couple of things, and I'll say a couple pieces of artwork just to give you a category. Some movie artwork that was pretty great, and that looks exciting. And dare I say, I think I'm excited because I wasn't necessarily expecting another Julian's maybe so soon.
Yeah.
So it
seems
seems
fun
like
because it's kind of off cycle for them.
Yes.
And it comes in, and Heritage. It's so, when there was Profiles, it used to be very predictable. Sort of, you knew there would be two auctions. There'd sort of be one in the summer, one at the end of the year, maybe one earlier if they got enough stuff, or if somebody died, or if they had a specialty thing or a studio sale or something like that. And but they're kind of, catch as catch can. And then Prop Store's first auction of the year is usually almost halfway through the year.
Not till June,
end of June or July. So this is something to whet our appetites, hopefully.
Yeah, very exciting. And by the way, not even an advertiser, although perhaps if the people at Julian's, knew what was good for them, that might change. Something to think about, Julian's. Yeah.
You could sell so many singing catalogs, guys. You wouldn't even be able to keep up with it.
I know, by the way, that the main guy there is Darren Julian, but I much prefer to think of somebody that works there whose first name is Julian. Let me speak to Julian. I don't know why that has nothing to do with anything, but I really like that concept.
And it's one
two guys. One guy whose first name was Julian, and another guy whose first name was Auction.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Very good. But like that guy, the guy with the employee at Julian's that has the first name Julian is one of two things. There's no middle ground. It's one of two extremes. He either hates every moment of his wretched existence.
Cannot wait to find another job and get out of there.
Or every time he picks up the phone, he does, "This is Julian, no relation," and he loves it.
Hello,
and
welcome to Julian's auction. I'm Julian. No.
Yes, it's
I'm
very
sure.
funny.
I'm sure. Yes. It's hilarious.
No,
Thank you.
My mom didn't know, and yes.
Thank you. Who died? Okay, yeah. We want their blender for our next auction. Yeah.
What kind of toaster collection did they?
Yeah. So did that land us the Julian campaign?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it did. I'm pretty sure that's a lock now. Yeah. That's a lock. How about you? What's new in props? Because mine was lame. That was a fake what's new in props for me. So yeah.
I really hoped you were going to ask because this came in today. Just you'll notice it's just like the other one, except it says season 4 on it.
Wow. I cannot wait till you have you have to start thinking about, the display that's behind you with the whip and the hat.
Yeah.
Just put them on top of that, just like on top of it, so
Just
that in
line them
all
up.
of these shots of you,
Just
there's
haunting you.
right now there'd be 2 diamonds, and eventually you'll work your way to
Yeah.
whatever, the 5 diamond club or whatever it is. Yeah.
Not my Golden Globe. That stays as the doorstop downstairs, but the prop store favorite host rewards go high up on the shelf above the Indy fedora. Yes,
Exactly.
I think that's fair.
Well, kudos.
Yes.
I don't know if
Thank you.
For those of you not watching on YouTube, I rolled my eyes. Big time.
I'd like to also thank the person. Well, I'd like to thank Star Trek: The Motion Picture
for just
and then
existing.
I'd like to thank
for being
existing.
Such a great movie that somebody wanted to own V'ger.
Excellent movie.
Yeah. Dear Lord.
And for the V'ger, which sold for $27,000, and they used my name as a coupon. Which man, did I make my coworkers proud? I was telling everybody, and they just stared at me, as they often do when I tell my stories. Beyond that, I have what's new in props today is that this guest, delivered by editor and producer Bart producing with a capital P this week, suggested, and it hadn't
by the
occurred
way,
to us. It probably
married
should have.
now and just and dying of COVID, although now better. Managed to book a great guest for us. Some might say finally, but anyway, let's
checking in on the video feed. But yeah, tonight the guest tonight is Mr. Alec Gillis. He started. We'll get into the whole story, but he started with Roger Corman. He was friends with Jim Cameron. He worked with Jim Cameron. He was recruited by Stan Winston.
FOJC.
This isn't like his 20s. All of this stuff happened, and then went on to found ADI with Tom Woodruff and worked in practical effects and makeup effects and then digital practical effects through his whole career. And we won't be able to get into all of it tonight because he's had such a long and illustrious career, but we're super excited to have him. And the story behind that is that Bart and I both know his daughter Devin because we all used to work together on Colony, and Devin was my season 1 assistant on the show and helped me out. And she had previously been in the greater Carlton Cuse universe as one of their writers' PAs. And when I needed an assistant for season 1, she was recommended over to me and hired her. She was wonderful. We became fast friends. She guarded my office with a ferocity that has never been seen since. And now she's gone on to she has a writing career of her own. She's working in television. It's really amazing. So, and Devin and I have kept in touch over the years. And I was such a huge fan of her dad. That's funny. When she was recommended to me, I said, Gillis. I was like doing the last name. And I said, is she related to Alec Gillis? And people were kind of looking at me because, it's sort of like Alec is a legend. But it's, it's a legend to nerds. And of course, at that point, if there was any doubt that I was a nerd,
did she just go like, yes, he's my father?
Yeah. And then, just told, I wanted to get Alec's POV on this, but she told a fantastic story and she's much younger than us because she was coming up in her career when I was stepping into the Colony boots. But when she was like a teenager, maybe just a teenager, that movie, what was the movie with the videotape that killed you after
The Scream?
No,
not The Scream. The Ring. The Ring. Jesus. Yeah.
There you go. We're like Statler and Waldorf now.
Yeah. So
the girl with the hair in the video.
Yeah. It really seemed like it was The Scream, but anyway. That didn't sound right.
So she told me this story, and we should just let this live in the world. Devin's a great storyteller. She's a writer of her own right. She said that when she was like, I don't know, she was like 12 or 13, a very not ready for this age. Her dad said, there's a new movie came out. I left it in the VCR for you. And you should just check it out. So she like played it. And then she said he knew when she had started the movie and he timed it. And like right when like the 7 minutes or whatever the thing passes, he called her on the phone And she said she just like she had this like out of body experience. She just like left her body, and then but she stood with it, and she's like that's what it was just like growing up in his house. There was constantly just monsters waiting around the corner, heads left in your bed, and all that. So
that
seems like a just
yeah.
delightful Willy Wonka funhouse of horror. But no, we're super excited to have Alec on and pick his brain and tell his stories, and we hope you enjoy it. All right, so we are very excited to be joined by living legend, Mr. Alec Gillis.
Still living legend, still alive, barely alive, living legend.
We talked a little bit about you on the other side of this before where your ears were burning, Alec. But we're super excited to have you, and you've had this amazing career. You know, it's funny because
you're the first living legend we've ever had on the show, so that's pretty exciting for as
we usually talk
as you can imagine. Yeah,
more talkative than the dead ones.
Very good.
Better audio.
And better audio. You know, I feel like I've known you sort of tangentially or by proxy for a long time because of our mutual relationship with your lovely daughter Devin, and her relationship to me on Colony when she was working as first our writer's PA, and then my assistant on the show, and now she's gone off. She has a exciting amazing TV career of her own. We're very proud of her, and she told lots of stories about you, some of which I will get into, and we're just you've had such an amazing career, and it's so cool that I feel like it's spanned so many phases of genre filmmaking that we're fascinated to talk to you and hear your stories and what you have to say about it.
Well, thank you for having me on. And also thank you for being a mentor to my daughter, because she's very grateful, as are we, that she landed with you at that point in her career. And so thank you very much.
My pleasure. She's great. And I always adored Devin. And it's funny because when and you've met Bart, Bart now, who worked with me for a really long time, but Wes, who is my kind of co-writer on Colony, always said that Devin and I he was like in a way she's the perfect / worst possible kind of assistant for you because your personalities are so similar, and I feel like you're ready to murder everybody that comes in your office, and maybe kind of Devin's ready to murder everybody that comes in your office. Whereas like when Bart and I came together, Bart was like the nice, soft one that sort of like welcomed everybody in.
Yang,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And Devin was did not suffer fools, we shall say.
Yeah. Right. And I get that directly from her at times too. And we actually put her in. She was in dance, and we realized this kid needs to be in martial arts, so we put her in Taekwondo and karate, and just to sort of channel that a little bit. So I think she has.
It's great, and I'm so. I was telling you offline, but I got to catch up with her briefly this summer when I was doing my LA whirlwind of selling our house and promoting the show. But it was just exciting to hear her talk about her career now and how it's all going, and just really, really proud of her. It's awesome.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your hand in that.
Ryan, I just identify talent and push them along.
I want just to congratulate you, Ryan, on your most insidious collecting move yet. Hiring Alec Gillis's daughter to be your assistant, you motherfucker. And if George Lucas is listening, because I know he's a big fan, and I'm looking for an assistant right now. If one of your kids or grandkids wants to come work with me, I would love to mentor them. I'd love to. If you are a prop maker or a big producer of sci-fi, whatever, and you would like your child mentored, please send them to me. I will mentor them. Apparently, this is the new scam in collecting. I did not know that till just now. But well done, bravo!
It goes deep. It actually did, I will say, and it did lead to something that I unfortunately was so big I had to leave it in storage in LA, but it's safely wrapped away in storage, and we'll talk about that at some later point. Yes. But Alex. So I mean, I went through your IMDb profile probably 7 or 8 years ago at this point, just to refresh myself, because I had so many questions for Devin. And then I did it again in prep for this show. And it was like, I was amazed at just looking at your credits, and I have questions about so many movies, but I think it's best to just talk about how your first film and how you got started, because you got started in the Corman verse. Yes.
Yes, I did. I was very fortunate. I think I met through my sister. She was going to Cal State Northridge, and she had a friend they were acting together, and he was working for Corman as a carpenter. And he had been to my mother's house where I was living at the time. I think I was about 19 years old, and he saw the garage that I had taken over and was full of stop motion models and monsters hanging from rafters and things like that. And he said, "Hey, I could get you an interview at Roger Corman's." And I was like very nervous because I didn't have a proper portfolio and I was pretty shy and insecure. But it was
on your mind. Like at this point,
this
was what you wanted to do. Okay,
yes.
Sorry, yeah.
So backing up from like age 12,
you were building kits and stuff and famous monsters of Filmland and all of that. Yeah, okay.
Gotcha. Ray Harryhausen was my god, and so I was trying to learn how to make stop motion models. I was animating toys. I was models, blowing up airplane models in the backyard. My mother bought me gunpowder at one point so I could make better explosives and pyro and all that. But so by the time I was 19, I had some, in retrospect, the stuff wasn't bad, but you always feel less about yourself than maybe you should, which might be a good thing. But I had met through a high school art teacher that my wife had at the high school we went to. I met James Cameron, who was he's about 5 or 6 years older than me, and that was during his truck driving, for the school district era. And so I went out to Brea. I would go to his house and we would work on projects. I was into sort of organic, stop motion puppets and things like that, makeup, and he was into the spaceship. So he had a project he was working on called Xenogenesis that he was trying to get off the ground. So we were making some puppets and things for that. So,
and I just interrupt really quickly. And we now know Xenogenesis today as Titanic. So that's
pretty much. Yeah. You can see this short film he did on YouTube. There's a very low grade quality of it, low quality YouTube called Xenogenesis. But anyway, so I brought him to the interview because I was insecure, and I thought, well, this guy, I'll ride his coattails, and I've been doing it ever since.
So you're saying even then he was confident. So that's really what I'm taking from this. Yes, even the truck driving phase,
the most confident truck driver.
And can I tell you? I can tell you this because he told me. Some years after that, it took us like 6 months to get hired. They interviewed us, and then I thought, I guess we're not good enough. And it turns out, according to Jim, that he was so obnoxious that they were like, and then they hired us, and it all worked out. But that's I don't mean obnoxious. I mean confident. That's what he was. Yeah.
That sounds
so. That started my Corman.
Perfect. It's funny. I think people nowadays, and obviously when you hear the stories are out there. But I think the sort of what's the word I'm looking for? The loss of the Corman factory, which gave the start to so many people, and just the sheer amount of like low budget sort of movie making and sort of like throwing you into the deep end. Just so many incredible people came out of it. And to read the different people's stories of just like, I went in and 2 days later they called and just said, can you get yourself to Utah? There's a movie that needs a director. And that sort of that energy of just sort of that make or break thing. I think it's, I don't know what the equivalent, there is no equivalent today in an unfortunately very bad way. Yeah.
There is no equivalent. And that's why I dropped out of film school, because I was kind of simultaneously working for Roger and going to, in the mornings I'd go to class, in the afternoon I'd rush over. And I just realized that the better film school was Corman.
Right. Sure.
And yeah, no, and I do miss that because, it was really the template, we are imprinted by our earliest experiences. So I walked in thinking, well, I knew there's a big budget world out there and this was not it, but this was fantastic for me because it was under one roof. It was all, we had Hammond Lumber in Venice. That was an old lumber facility, a lumber yard, and it had an outdoor area. It had a big warehouse inside where everything was going on. We were building spaceships and landscapes and shooting the movie there, and then when the movie was shot, VFX would take it over again, and we would, continue that. And they were doing jobs for like Escape from New York, and where they're just doing the visual effects. So you got to, if you were working there, you got to wear a million hats and learn a heck of a lot. So I've kind of, it's sort of like, my rosebud. I'm always trying to recreate that experience where under one roof, you're making films and you're doing the creatures, you're doing miniatures, you're doing it all.
The title that you've used to identify yourself or express what you do, has that changed over time, or have you always considered yourself a makeup, special effects, creature design artist? Or
yeah, that's interesting because people say, like, what are you? And I always pause for a second because, like I could just simply say I'm a monster maker, but that
Right.
doesn't quite, like, it's not always monsters, right? And well, I do special makeup and animatronic characters. That's pretty good. But we also do specialty costumes. We do props. We build miniatures. So that's not quite right. Character designer, maybe a little bit more recent, wherein we're doing design work for movies that have no practical effects component, like the recent, King Kong and Godzilla movies. And so we're designing creatures and we just turn the digital files over to the VFX department. So it sort of depends on who I'm talking to. If they're interviewing me about a makeup, I'll just boil it down to, makeup effects designer. If I'm being talked to about, a Predator movie or something, I might say,
yeah.
A specialty costume or animatronics or something like that. So I like not fitting neatly into a category.
Yeah, well, I
almost,
mean, it's
it
great to
sort
be
of goes back to
multidisciplinary.
I was going to say, it goes back to almost the Corman days of you kind of did a little bit of everything in a great way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what came after Corman? I mean, what did you do a couple of things with him? Because I know Battle Beyond the Planets, right?
Yeah, Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the
Please.
Stars.
Not to be confused with Battle
Sorry.
Beyond the Planet. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Battle Beyond the Planets was the movie that Corman shot on the weekend in the same set.
In Spanish.
Yes.
Yes.
I did Battle Beyond the Stars was probably like 9 months, and then I worked on, while going to school at UCLA film school, I worked on Galaxy of Terror, Android, couple of those kinds, and then that group of people packed up and left Corman and formed a company called Private Stock Effects. That was the Skotak brothers, who were the tabletop miniature geniuses, and I worked on Jaws 3D for them.
Yeah.
While in my last throes at film school, and I'm actually responsible, partly, not entirely, but I was in charge of the miniature sharks that were in the miniature environments and things like that. So I built me and the team built a 3-foot shark that was puppeteerable, that would swim in a dry for wet, smoky environment and then be composited into the shot. And then apparently what happened was they ran out of money. There might have been some legal issues with that company, Private Stock Effects. Nothing to do with the Skotak brothers or any of us who were toiling away. It was other people who had some issues. But anyway, what happened was another company, they kind of confiscated everything out of Private Stock to finish the movie. and they did a shot with my shark where they just didn't bother puppeteering it. So it's that famous shot where it's kind of,
it's kind
of coming like this, and then it hits the cartoon glass. So it makes it, it made it on the #1 worst practical effects shot of all cinema history. And that's me. I get to,
ladies and gentlemen, living legend, Alec Gillis. Yes.
You see, kids, anyone can make it in Hollywood if you just stay long enough.
Oh, that's great. And then, so your career is evolving, I imagine, by the minute, because there's, at this point, it's the kind of early mid '80s. There's so much demand, right, for genre and creature stuff, and people are, it's being done at a high budget level. It's being done at a sort of B movie level, but people need to make that stuff. So certainly, at this point, you've proven yourself. You're in demand. I imagine the phone is ringing all the time. Yes.
Well, there's always those ups and downs, and I was living in, like, when did I leave UCLA? Maybe around 82 or so, and Jim Cameron, I would see him occasionally, and he would say, "I've got this movie. I want you to do the stop motion for it," because that's, he thought of me as a stop motion guy primarily, but I had moved away from that in the intervening years since we had met, and it was Terminator that he was talking about, and I kind of thought, we'll see. Everybody talks about movies that but I forgot who I was dealing with. And so I didn't.
That was the last time anyone ever said, "Yeah, right, Jim." That was the official last time.
Yeah.
1983.
Yeah. I went to work on. I worked around. I worked on Friday the 13th Part 4 for Tom Savini, and then
what were you doing? What were you doing there? Were you doing Jason
makeup,
effects or other?
Yeah, Jason effects. I don't know if you know the film very well, but he gets the machete in his face and he slides down it, and his head and he goes. Blah, blah. So I mechanized all of that.
Right.
I was my buddy Kevin Yeager, who would go on to do Child's Play and a bunch of other great things. He was in charge of the application of that makeup. So I, took his skins basically and had to articulate this head, because back then you did everything, right? You weren't just a sculptor; you also mechanized things and so on. But while I was doing that, I got a call from Stan Winston, who was on Terminator. He was starting Terminator, and he said, "Jim said I should call you and offer you a job." And I was like, "Wow, that's fantastic! That's really very nice." But I've committed to Friday the 13th Part 4, because it was the final chapter, so I wasn't going to just jump ship.
That's right. They never made another.
They never made another. And so I did finagle an interview out of it, and I went and showed Stan my book, and it looked to me like I made zero impression on him, because he just sort of flipped through things very quickly. And he said, "All right, let me know when you're available." And I did, which was well after Terminator, but I got a job with Stan then on Invaders from Mars, which led right into Aliens, and then I was with Stan for about 2.5 years, and we also did the original Predator, Monster Squad, Pumpkinhead, Alien Nation, a bunch of amazing stories, a few amazing stories. So in 2.5 years, I had that felt like a 10-year career of projects. And
because I was going to say, just for 3 seconds, if we can, just obviously, if you had sort of Aliens and the original Predator and then gotten hit by a car and your IMDb ended there, it's not bad. That's pretty wild.
Except for the part about getting hit by a car.
Well, no, but it's fine. I know it's fine. Yeah.
No. It was like, because there was no digital. That was part of it. And Stan suddenly shot up to the top of the heap, and we were getting these great projects were coming in, and we were doing them hand over fist, and very quickly too. Stan was Stan was very adamant, about being production friendly, and he wanted to take as much work as he possibly could, and he didn't have this sort of like precious attitude about everything, which was great for me, because I felt like many times in projects, people start stroking their beards and it becomes too precious, and it kills the energy. And I think you get something better if you have time parameters and budget parameters, and you're kind of racing against the clock. And then it's also, you get more done that way too. But that's what. So I was with Stan for. I think I left after right when he was starting to direct a movie called. I think was it called A Gnome Named Norm or Upworld? I can't remember what. I think it was A Gnome Named Norm. That's what it came out as. And that's when I formed Amalgamated Dynamics with Tom Woodruff Jr., who was also a Stan Winston guy.
Okay.
So that's when you guys go off and you form ADI. But can we? Let's back up for 4 seconds and just talk. Yeah. We have to talk a little Aliens. I think just because, because the clapper is still sitting right there.
It's a beautiful clapper.
I wanted to. I just wanted to ask, because I mean, obviously Stan Winston, absolute icon, legend in the business, but in the Terminator days, Terminator is sort of what made him Stan Winston, right? So when he phoned you up, it wasn't like you were turning down it wasn't like turning down Stan Winston sort of post Aliens, post Terminator. He was a guy who was, I imagine, known in your wing of the industry, but not yet a household name. Is that accurate?
Yeah, he was very well respected, and his notable things pre Terminator would be The Wiz, and Heartbeeps, which he was nominated for the first makeup, regular category makeup Oscar. He lost to American Werewolf in London, and so he did the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. If you were into makeup, you knew Stan, from those kind of things. But you're right, he had not broken out into the big mainstream. He wasn't Rick Baker or Rob Bottin at that point. And Terminator made him one of those guys. And in fact, that was very thrilling to me to be part of his studio and Stan used to say, nobody's the best. It's just like, who's got the hot project out right now, and which was wise, but it was fun to sort of be like, oh my God, I'm working for the studio that has, we just did Invaders from Mars, got a lot of attention, at least, I don't know how well it did box office wise, but Aliens, people were calling, it was on the cover of Time magazine, and our alien queen, and it was amazing to feel like you were there now, like you're like, every bit as viable a studio as Rob Bottin or Rick Baker's was, and it felt good, especially since I was kind of unable to break into either Rick Baker's core group or Rob Bottin, so I was just sort of doing what I could do, and then sort of kind of like help my mentor Stan get to that position was really very exciting.
So let's talk about Aliens for just a mini
the next
deep dive,
6 hours,
if that's humanly possible. Yeah, exactly. Let's just start with, like, you were a fan of the original movie, like Alien.
You must have been, right?
Yeah, you had to have been a fan of that as like as a monster guy. That fit in.
I went to see it with Jim Cameron.
Oh, funny.
When it came out in Brea, and we were both like, holy shit. Yeah. So big fan of that.
So did you know that Cameron was working on a sequel, that there was a sequel that he was working on even before the job came to the Winston shop? Like, were you aware it was going on?
Yeah. Cause we were, Jim was around the studio. It was not like he was hanging out all the time, but
enough that you knew what was going on.
Yeah. Gotcha. And he had done, the Rambo sequel, I think, got him a lot of attention as a writer.
Yeah, he wrote it. Right. Yeah.
And I think that put him in position to do the pitch for
Wow,
Alien.
that's funny. I never thought about that. The success of that sequel got him the sequel. I never put that together. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think they were like, well, maybe you can do something with this, and Terminator was a great, indie.
Sure, of course.
So
huge hit.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right into it. Like, how would you, when you look back on Aliens, like, you mentioned the Queen. What are you most proud of? What do you think about? Let's just get into your work there.
I was personally responsible for the Bishop effects, ripping Bishop in half.
So by the end of the movie, spoiler alert. Yep.
Yeah. And I also sculpted the face huggers and painted just about all of them. And as well as, working things on set, doing rigs and all that. I was sort of Queen adjacent, more with the miniature Queen than the full scale Queen, although puppeteering the full scale as well. So I was there. I was I came late to London after the rest of the core group of guys did, because I was finishing up Invaders from Mars. I was running the set work on Invaders from Mars. Stan and the rest went off. So they were there for a couple of months before I was there. So I think I was there for 3 or 4 months total. So when I walked in to Pinewood Studios, when I got there jet lagged, I walked into the, I said, "Where's Jim? I want to say hi to Jim." And he's on the set. It was the Colony set, with the, with the, where they first come in and the corridors and all that kind of stuff.
The hole in the floor.
Yeah. And Jim standing there in his Hawaiian shirt, and he goes, "Hey," and he says, "Who'da thunk it?" And it was a mere 5 years prior to that we were two bumpkins sitting in the Brea Mall Theater watching Alien. That's awesome. And then I was like,
a great story. I'm
never going to doubt this guy again.
The Queen puppet, the smaller one, I guess, as opposed to obviously the giant life-size one, it's. I mean, we've seen it. It's
out there.
It's out there as a prop. It's incredible. I mean, it's truly a work of art unto itself. I don't know what else to say. I take that as you will. There's no question. I'm just saying it's a work of art. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
It really is still to me, it's one of my top fave creatures. I just think it was so well designed. And that's Jim. That's Jim also. The lines of it are gorgeous. It's funny because the female forms of it that are built into it, including high heels. There's a garter belt on it as well.
That's funny.
It reminded me of his design work of Nell, the spaceship from Battle Bay on the Stars, which was a female torso, the boob ship. It was a female torso,
that's so
sort
funny.
of twisted, and the side pods, you get a kind of arm and shoulder and armpit feel, and I was intimately familiar with that one because I worked on that ship with Jim. We built that ship, and it also has garters. So I was like, "Oh man, this is a motif with this pervert." No, but he just has such a great, as an artist himself. I don't know if he still does sketches or not, but he just has a great way of blending shapes and making organic forms, very exotic and pleasing to the eye. And that's why I think the Queen is still. I'm looking at a Queen head over there right now. It's just a gorgeous piece of artwork with elements to it that people just weren't even thinking about back then.
Yeah, I mean the Queen. At the time, the mid '80s. I mean there've been a bunch of really interesting creatures. I mean Giger's alien being sort of a world famous one that still has never really been, everybody has aped it but has never replicated. But what I love about the Queen is it was an extension of that idea. Mm-hmm. And I mean that was Cameron in that era. That was Cameron's superpower, and I think that's what he did with Rambo. He took a dark character drama in Vietnam and turned it into this kind of escapist action movie, and made Rambo into a franchise. And he did the same with Aliens, and making, taking a horror film, making it into an action franchise. But he expanded the mythology of that character and said, okay, well, there were eggs, and we know this thing comes out of an egg, and then it implants that, and then it becomes, the chest burster comes out and it turns into an alien. But as I think Hudson says, what's laying all the eggs? And the design of that, and that idea, and extrapolating on Giger's work, was just the most fascinating thing. And then that creature, I mean, nobody had ever done anything like that, right? At that size and scale, in terms of a practice. I mean, there was Godzilla and Kong and stuff, but those were always miniatures that were made to look big, not an actual gigantic creature done in scale with the humans that were acting with it.
And also, dare I say, seamless for my eye. And again, I don't sit there and going frame by frame by frame, but of when it is the big thing that they're interacting with, but then also when the puppet is on screen as well, so that both things are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're working equally and seamlessly without being aware of like, oh, now we're in the puppet land. Oh, now we're back to the big land or whatever. Whereas, often the second something switches sometimes in another thing, to whether it's switching from live to digital or whatever it is, even if it's not egregious, I feel like your brain reads a difference, that you feel it even if you don't know you're feeling. Anyway.
I agree. I still cite Aliens as a nearly perfect combination of full scale and miniature. We're in an era now where it's we'll still do animatronic pieces, so it's maybe full scale and digital, but you can watch Aliens, and there might be, I think there's one shot of the Queen where it's kind of doing this, where it's running towards you. It looks a little, maybe that's more of a puppeteering issue than anything else. There were times when I was watching the movie with an audience when it first came out, where I was like, I don't remember doing that with the big Queen, because I was there for the big Queen stuff. I was not there for the little Queen stuff. It was invisible to me as well, and still is. It's what we sought to imitate that balance in the movie Tremors, that Gail Ann Hurd produced, and she also produced Aliens. And we would say, Gail, we got to do what we did on Aliens, which is a full-scale thing that has certain functions and does enough to connect your actor to the monster, and then lean heavily into tabletop miniatures and the Skotex who shot the Aliens stuff also shot the Tremors miniatures, and it's still a technique I love and I would love to explore more, but I don't know if we'll really get the chance outside of some lower budget films. I don't know if we'll get the chance to really explore that. I think it still has a lot of life to it.
I think it's missing. Again, the digital is wonderful and can be wonderful, but there's something missing, and I don't know. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but it does. There's something missing in even when there's, as you put it, sometimes an animatronic into the digital, there's just something still a little off on the digital for me. I don't know. I don't know. I hate to say soulless, but sometimes a little soulless.
Yeah. And people often, because I did, I've been a what do you call it? A flag bearer, standard. I don't know what. I've been a promoter of practical effects because of that. Because I feel like there's, on the fan side of things, there's a great love and appreciation for practical effects because it's tactile, it looks real, actors can interact with it and react to it, and so I've been a promoter of that. But people assume that means that I am anti-digital, which I'm not at all. And we know that there are movies where you look at digital work and you don't even realize you're looking at digital work. It's when it doesn't work that we go, ooh,
right.
Or if you look at digital work from the 90s, there are some, people always talk about the Scorpion King, but like that has not aged as well as Aliens has, which is basically ageless,
Right.
So there's something that's going on in practical that makes it still worthy and viable.
I mean, I would say that, Aliens as the distinction of, it's one of those films from the practical era as we were just on the edge of moving to digital, where the older movie looks better than the future sequels made from it. If you compare it to like Alien Resurrection, where I think they went mostly digital with it. Alien 3, right, had a combination of, but Alien Resurrection, Aliens just still looks better than a movie made 10 years later.
Yeah, you had the full body reliance on digital aliens and swimming aliens and all that stuff. So yeah, it is a technique that I would still love to explore it more. And low budget film, this is why I enjoy low budget. Not only is it back to my Corman roots, but they don't have the money for the digital, because digital is a more expensive technique, generally speaking, than practical is. I think back in the mid 2000s, we did a price comparison on a specific job with a visual effects producer, and the practical work was 3 to 6 times cheaper in the end, when you factor in like puppeteers and hotel rooms and things like that. It's probably not quite the case now, because I think costs have, and we're doing things more outside of the United States now, where the rates are cheaper and incentives and all that kind of stuff. So, but I just sort of liken it to analog, or like orchestra music that's analog and real instruments, as opposed to digitally sampled instruments, which can sound great and are a great alternative, but there's something about a real orchestra that is different.
Yeah. I mean, we on House of the Dragon, I've often heard people flirt with ideas. Obviously, the full-size dragons have to be digital in order to pull them off, but I've heard people flirt with things like miniatures, because we have all these castles, and wouldn't it be great to have a miniature of the Red Keep, because we're always sweeping past or going through it, and you see everybody get really excited about it, and then eventually they just talk themselves out of it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Yeah.
It's a funny thing. I think it's because, and again, this may be getting into it a little bit too much, but I think it's because to like build that miniature is that's a big decision, and there's a cost to that. Whereas if you don't build it and you just go, well, it's just digital each time, but no one ever actually goes to the end. Yes, exactly. But then no one looks back later and goes, well, if we just built it, it would have actually, you know what I mean? It's because it seems like an expense. I know, that's how I always.
Yeah. There was an executive at Universal named John Swallow, who was a really cool guy, gruff old guy who'd been around for years, and he was a VFX, like the president of VFX there or something. And he was a very straight shooter. And I asked him point blank, I'm like, why are studios shying away from animatronics? We all know that it's less expensive, and it's, I just promoted it, for its strengths. And he said, well, listen, I'll tell you. He was like Wilfred, if you imagine Wilfred Brimley. He said, I don't want to fucking pay for it twice. And his point was that by the time you get to test screenings, you have to make changes to these films, and then they end up throwing stuff out, and you can't go back as conveniently and quickly and reshoot or change designs of practical stuff, because it took you months to get there in pre-production. But you can take pre-existing digital assets, change them up, get them out there, get some, even if it's a sort of low res kind of lesser version of the shot as it was intended. It's a more flexible technology, and you can get it out there. He said he only trusted Del Toro, Favreau, and maybe one other director to stick with the plan and not throw out practical work. But I think there's another component to that, though, is that I've noticed, like, on Alien 3, I think, well, that was a problem plagued production. So maybe that's not a good, but we would have, say, Aliens, we would have, like a 6-month build, and then we would shoot for 3 or 4 months. At some point in the 90s, I think it was, and I've heard that Disney led this movement, the studio, that they just chopped pre-production in half just to save money. so that they don't have to write the check as soon as quickly, and they don't have to
Yep.
pay on the interest on those giant loans and all that stuff. So then what you have is a less, an improperly planned production that is going to require big reshoots at the end, pickups and, well, we got to redo the ending, and and then everything has to fall in line there. You have to use digital then at that point because it's the more flexible of the techniques. It may not look as good in certain cases. It may not please the audience as much, but you haven't taken the time to properly plan a feature film. And practical effects requires that pre-planning and a commitment to it early on. And people are skittish about doing that on short schedules,
Prop Store is once again teaming up with Sony Pictures Television for an online auction to celebrate the Goldbergs, which is wrapping its monumental 10th season on Wednesday, May 3rd on ABC.
During its run, the show became just as well known for its focus on 80s pop culture references as it did for its characters and plot lines. It often featured and parodied the most popular television shows, movies, and music of the era, which added to the show's appeal. To honor the show, Propster is hosting an online auction now through May 15th, 2023 at propstore.com/the Goldbergs. That's propstore.com/the Goldbergs, with over 100 fun lots for fans to bid on. Ryan, are you a Goldbergs fan? My kids love the show.
I've never seen the show.
Love the show.
I feel like I would like the show, but I have never
I think
seen
you would. I think you would. When your kids are older, they're going to actually, that's going to be a show you're going to let them watch, and they're going to really like it. My kids love it. I actually took my kids, our friend Daisy Gardner was working as a writer there, and we actually I took my kids over so that they could visit the set and literally go on the set. And I think some of the stuff that's in this auction is stuff we saw there. I've got my daughter Madeline standing here. You are a fan of the show? Yes. Do you want to bid on anything in this auction? Yeah. She says yes. She's not allowed to, but she says yes. All right, here we go. Highlights from the auction include Beverly Goldberg is played by Wendy McClendon Covey's classic sweaters. Tell me about her sweaters, Madeline. How would you describe them?
They're bright.
Always very bright.
Some might say ugly.
Ugly, some might say.
Colorful, bedazzled.
So we're talking about the Beverly sweaters and Pops, as played by George Siegel's velour jumpsuit. So that's pretty exciting right now. I think Beverly sweaters a key item. What else we got here, Ryan?
Production used props inspired by classic films like Adam Goldberg's, as played by Sean Giambroni. Did I do that right?
Sean Giambroni? Is that any idea? She's saying yes.
Great, I did it right.
Yep.
His bike from the episode Schmoopy's Big Adventure, which I imagine is a take on another movie that has a similar title.
Yes, somebody else's big adventure with a bike that looks like somebody else's bike. Yes. Fun episode. Custom 80s inspired costumes, such as Erica Goldberg and Jeff Schwartz's, as played by Haley Orantia and Sam Lerner's Halloween costumes. What were their Halloween costumes? You remember?
They went as Hall & Oates, and one of them was Cough Drops, and one of them was Quaker Oats, I think.
One of them went as Quaker Oats, and one of them went as Cough Drops. They went as Hall & Oates. Get it?
Nice.
Hall & Oates. I don't know if that costume's in there, but we have a Goldberg expert with us. Yes,
Great.
Goldberg's expert. Production used vintage 80s pop culture memorabilia, including toys, video game systems, role-playing games, trading cards, and sports memorabilia, items that many of us collected back in the day and some of us continue to collect now. I don't think we're legally allowed to say what the names of some of these things are, but sports-wise, the show is set in Philadelphia. So that might help you,
there you go,
sports-wise, if you are a collector of nameless teams from the greater Philadelphia area.
Very good.
Portion of the proceeds from the auction will be donated by Sony Pictures Television to the nonprofit organization Everyday Action. That's Everyday Action, which reallocates the food waste on film sets directly to those living in the streets of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and the San Fernando Valley. So I guess that's a lot of red vines to the people on the streets of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and San Fernando Valley, because that's what's on every film set ever. What else can you tell us, Ryan?
This online auction runs now through May 15th. It's online only, so go to propstore.com/the Goldbergs to bid. And if you're looking to buy something from your other favorite movie or television title, you can always use Prop Store's Buy Now platform at propstore.com to select from the over 5,000 items available for immediate sale. So use your Dave10 or Ryan10 discount codes to get 10% off your entire Buy Now purchase and vote for your favorite host at the same time.
Hold on, I'm going to just ask my daughter, Madeline, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite Goldbergs episode ever? Like one episode that's your absolute favorite?
Oh.
Quickly, people are paying for this.
Oh my god. I really like the Halloween episode. I think it was season 4.
Season 4 Halloween episode, what happens?
Beverly goes crazy about safety on Halloween.
Beverly goes crazy about safety on Halloween.
Great.
Maybe she's not right about season 4. I don't know if there's anything in that auction there, but again, an honest to God, huge Goldbergs fan who will not be allowed to bid. I'm shutting off her credit card, will not be allowed to bid on this. So her loss is your gain. Goldbergs.
May 15th, everybody bid now.
I believe I think we've somehow just discussed the entire problem with the movie industry right now. The thing I find, and this gets into, and you do obviously, and we should talk about this obviously, because you work in digital. So you're not sitting here as like somebody, you're not an angry guy that like digital ruins your life. You do both. You've been very successful on the digital side. You've been involved in, equally, I don't know what to say, huge and important things. But for me, I love the philosophy here. To me, and again, I guess it's maybe a little bit of the bad digital. And, there have been a lot of articles lately, and there's been a lot of talk about, unionizing the digital workers and all of this stuff. And there've been like a whole bunch of articles, about Marvel and that part of it. And you're right, the whole reshoots and changing everything 1,000 times. I find it's almost like the limitations are what make the practical effects really interesting, and the anything can happen and we can do anything in digital starts to make it just nonsense world. That's for me.
Well, it means you don't need a script. I mean,
well, I agree with that, but I just mean even sort of like there's something about, we're going to build an arm, and this arm can do this, and it can do this, and it can do this. But it can't, like, once we build it can't bend here. But in digital world, it's like, oh, you want it to bend here, and you want it to bend here, and you want it to bend here, and you want it to bend here, or whatever. And even though that wasn't the original plan, you can just make it bend and do things that you never intended it to do because it's all whatever. And then no one ever thinks to themselves like, yeah, you can make it bend here, but should you? And I don't know. That's what
it's that line that Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, right? Like they never stop to think if they should,
right?
And you do get carried away with it as artists. It's a natural tendency to want to refine your work and go back. But what's that quote that a work of art is never finished, it's merely abandoned, right? And we're like, okay, done, time's up, which is what I like. I like those parameters, because then you have closure to something and you're not just constantly reworking something that's potentially perfect but perpetually unfinished. I don't dig that at all. And I think that's a bit that you address. A big part of the problem is that we pixel fuck, right? That's the term for this, pixel fucking, where you have control over this. So you exert that control, and then pretty soon you've beat out all of the organic elements and all the imperfections that make it real. And you've turned it into a slick product. Everything looks too glossy and too perfect. And that's kind of like what maybe movies starting in the 60s and into the 70s rebelled against the golden age, of studio films of the 40s and 50s, where there was a process and everything was very beautiful. It looked like Casablanca, and you can't argue with like, that's a cool looking movie, but it's not like who's the guy now that I'm forgetting, the guy that did the Brewster McCloud and Nashville. Who's that director?
Altman.
Robert Altman. So Robert Altman or any of those 70s guys that like they stopped using makeup on people's faces. You see Sissy Spacek's freckly face and all that. And it was fantastic because it made you feel it was a different look. It was a different take on it. In the same way that punk music was a reaction against, the the big process sound of Queen or what have you. You know, it was thrashy and organic and messy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I tend to favor that, but it doesn't. I have to. My techniques have had to become more refined in order to compete with digital. You know, we have to be able to make costumes that are very slick looking to where people go like, wow, I didn't know if it was digital or practical. And you go, oh, you know, all right. It was so refined that it looked digital. Anyway, I just feel like the organic aspect of it, and it lends itself more perhaps to horror films than to science fiction films, because horror can be a little more visceral and a little more imperfect and creepy and all that. But I love the serendipity. I love the happenstance, and I love when a material, as an artist, when a material gives something back to you. You know, that instead of trying to make it super smooth, you let it have its dimples and its subsurface stuff. And that's one of the things that, and digital has improved because of that, because artists are now really like embracing all of the organic quality to it, and they're imitating it in the digital world. And I think it's gotten a lot better. You look at like Weta's work on the Planet of the Apes movies, the more recent Planet of the Apes movies. Those things look spectacular.
Yeah,
you know, they're incredibly expensive, but their eyes are super expressive, and and they look spectacular.
Any technology can be used for good, and I think it just comes back to what you do with it, and then and also the storytelling behind it. Because Aliens, the Queen is great, it's amazing, it's beautiful, but if that movie isn't the story that was told, we wouldn't be talking about it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think of like one of my favorite practical effects films was Chuck Russell's The Blob. And nobody really talks about the movie that much. I guess maybe the movie wasn't that great, but the effects were spectacular in it, and a lot of miniatures and a lot of super organic looking stuff. But you're right. Like if it's some of the simplest things, like we did the Pennywise the clown on the recent two. More on the first one. The second one, we gave our molds over to our friends in the makeup department, but that was really a pretty simple makeup, but it's a great movie, and it's a striking design.
Yeah, super great design, just really effective, and just cuts through.
And it leans on the performer under it. Like it's a great design that allows Bill Skarsgård to make a character and bring life to it. Yeah.
Yes, and also, by the way, credit goes to Andy Muschietti, because that was his design. He was drawing that, and I think he had that Salvador Dali smile idea for a long time, and he's quite a good artist, actually.
I didn't realize that.
It's interesting. It sounds like you've had good fun when you've gotten a chance to work with these directors that are kind of coming in with a little bit of artistic drawing talent on their own a little bit, as opposed to perhaps kind of going, I don't know, where they,
Either approach is okay by me. I don't really like try to force myself into the, it's not about me. It's like, I feel like I'm going to learn more from a director if I just sort of listen a little bit more and support, as opposed to saying, step out of the way. There's some big personalities in my Stan Winston was a big personality, and that's a way to be, for sure. But Rob Bottin, was known for a look. You go to that guy for his look, for the look. And so we tried to kind of like be a little bit more, because we were like kids coming up trying to compete with our old mentor and these other big guys, so we would say like, well, how do we want to brand ourselves? And we tended to go in and like, listen and sort of gather information and then bring back the designs that we think, supported the director most. But like going back to Tremors, the description in Tremors in the script was very minimal. It was just, the only thing they said was that, they called them worms, and they said at one point its head opens up like a grotesque flower. So that was like a jumping off point. they were like, "What do you got? What do you guys want to do?"
Right, they were open to whatever.
Open
They just
to
knew,
it
yeah.
and excited by it, and we were all like, because they're sort of like science guys. Steve Wilson really is sort of a very grounded writer, and so we would bring in all the books, the nature books and stuff, and spread them out on the table, and we'd all go, "This is cool, this is cool, this is cool," and bookmark them, and then see how we could like combine and make it feel like a real life form, as opposed to something more fanciful that might be in a movie like Legend, like Ridley Scott's,
Right.
Yeah.
which is just a different way. So there's a lot of
Right.
different ways of working, and I enjoy them mostly.
I don't want to make you choose your babies, but do you have an all-time fave like design of yours, like something you did? And again, we're not going to hold you to it.
Right.
But at this moment, right now on this podcast, what's a favorite that comes
That's
to mind?
interesting.
Yeah.
I have never heard anyone cut me slack like that. That means I have to answer it. I can't give my stock answer of like,
I can't say, "Oh, they're all great."
Yeah. Here's my stock. I'll give you my stock answer first. My stock answer is that I always associate the experience of making the movie with my feelings towards the creature work in it.
Of course.
And that means that I don't even care if the movie's a success or not, if it was a fun creature to work on. But also, I do feel, I'll confess something that I've never confessed on a podcast. I feel like, because I've been very fortunate to have worked in the Predator and Alien franchises, that has been sort of the bulk of my work, and because we've done so many of those movies.
Right.
So as a result, my particular tastes get buried a little bit behind the original brilliance of those designs, of Giger's work and of Stan Winston's design for the Predator. So that leaves my heart a little empty, because I want to do more Alec Gillis-y stuff. But the two things that I feel are the most Alec Gillis-y would be the Tremors worm and probably Pumpkinhead. I designed the head of Pumpkinhead.
As pumpkin heads go, that is a great one.
Yeah. So I guess I'm still kind of skirting it, but maybe that's good enough.
There's an answer in there. But yeah, no, honestly, again, it is fun to work on, someone else's design, but I was curious about things you got to really create, a little more from scratch.
Yeah.
Cool. That's excellent.
Yeah, I think so. And then we have technical achievements, I think, too, like Goro was like just such a beast of a challenge, the forearms and the
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat, yes, in whatever that was, 94 or whatever.
The original, the classic.
Yes, yeah, and that was like, I don't know, we would never do it that way again, but for that moment, and I that was a project too that was difficult because it was a good learning experience in a number of ways, but we almost got sued by production. They took us to arbitration over Goro, and I won't bore you with the details, but we're the good guys and they were the bad guys. There was a lot of it was a great lesson in communication, like when you say when you say we're going to do a pre-programmed lip syncing character that emotes and is like an actor. And then what comes back is, it'll be like one of the actors. And you go, yeah, you're thinking in the final product. And the person asking that question means, just like an actor, it'll be sitting there off stage, and when you talk to it, it'll come walking in. It'll say its lines and walk out.
Do whatever you need. Yeah.
Oh, is that what you meant? Because that's not what I meant. So anyway, but it was I had a lot of negative associations with it because of the way it was received on set. But then I got very nicely validated by Richard Taylor from Weta, who said that he and Peter Jackson, when they were younger, had a video of that, and they just watched that video
Of just him, of that character. Oh, wow.
90 times. They just would go to the Goros parts 90 times until they obliterated the video. And I was like, oh, maybe that arbitration wasn't so bad.
When did you become aware, sorry, just for the podcast audience, when did you start to become aware that there were lunatics like me and Ryan that were not only collecting this stuff, but that would come after your daughter and try and mentor her against her will? Mentoring against her will.
She was in her last year of law school, and I said, no.
Yeah, she could have been a lawyer. I think I became aware of the collector's market maybe kind of late, because I just wasn't really paying attention to I didn't know anything about, like, online anything, until probably 2011 is when I discovered that, there was a big audience for what we do, because it was after The Thing, the prequel to The Thing, and much of our work got replaced. And then we put up a video of what we built practically, and it got a few million views very quickly. And I started reading the comments, and I was like, oh, people actually like what we do. I thought we were like being forced out of the business, I thought we had aged out. And around that time also, maybe it was a little bit before that, when Stan Winston passed away and much of his stuff was sold off.
Right. And the family auctioned it off. Yeah.
Then I realized, oh, people love the screen used props, anything that's screen used.
So you have a fantastic collection behind you of, I imagine, of your stuff. Have you ever had the itch, the urge to collect somebody else's stuff, that, one of your, like a Harryhausen piece or anything like that?
No, you guys are going to be disappointed in me, because I just don't have any interest in having the things other than like to show the art. I don't know why. I don't have anything at home really. I have one a plaque from AVP that's a face hugger, like part of the tiles in the wall, that looks like stone.
Oh yeah,
Aztec-y. I have that. That's the only thing I have at home. I don't really care about it, honestly.
It's probably
less competition
just
for us
as well. Yeah, I was going to say, is this your office, or are we in a show, or more of a display room of some sort?
This is my conference room and display room, and I've kind of rebuilt.
So this is where, like, if someone thinking about hiring you, you might meet them in this room. So as you're talking to them, they are incredibly distracted.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't used to. We were not proponents. We had a big building when we were ADI. So, this is now no longer ADI. This is Studio Gillis. And my business partner, Tom Woodruff, who I formed ADI with, is now living back east, and he's writing and pursuing writing and directing back there. So I thought, well, I'm not done. I'll start my own business. So it's Studio Gillis. I don't have as much space as I used to have in the past, in terms of, here I got a nice big studio, but so this room is more like the Head and Shoulders busts and stuff like that pieces, rather than the big full body stuff that we used to have.
Sure. When you spin around and look behind you on the shelf, what jumps out at you? What do I
like?
Call out a couple of things that
would
you're
you like,
fond of.
Would this be a good time for me to pick the laptop up and walk around?
You can pick it up if you like, or you can whatever works for you. I like this.
I want to make
exciting.
Sure that
this is great. Yeah,
see the stuff.
Oh, and this is cool.
My laptop
it keeps going. Yeah,
my laptop camera work might get kind of crappy, but
no, this is fantastic.
That is that's a clay sculpture from Ridley Scott's version of I Am Legend when we were working on that.
Okay, on the zombie guys.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And those would have been practical.
Yeah, they were going to be makeups. We were showing him, like, this is what you can expect to get out of like a rod puppet, It was in the 90s, so we were talking about rod puppets. But ultimately what it was going to be was appliances on people to make them look thin. We did some extensive tests for that, and then the movie went away.
Right.
And then this guy is the Queen Alien face hugger from Alien 3.
Yeah.
This is actually from our molds, but it's a it's a replica of the original, but it's from our original molds. This is a fun one. This is something I wrote a book some years ago that was a sci-fi pictorial book, and this is one of the creatures in that.
That's really cool.
Oh, what was the book called?
It's called Worlds: A Mission of Discovery, and it's sort of like a Robinson Crusoe on Mars sort of a story, you know, if you remember that old film.
Yep, very cool.
Yeah.
And then this guy was a design I did because I realized at some point that our display room was pretty drab, you know, with earth tones and things. So I thought, well, I'm just going to go nuts. And for a couple of years, people were blown away by it. And then Avatar came out, and it looks just like something from Avatar. So a mishmash.
Well,
of the
now
Avatar.
they think you worked on Avatar. It's good. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's true.
Yeah.
This is a film that we have yet to release, but it's an in-house feature that we did with an alien character. So if you guys have any leads on distribution for us, let me know. And this was there's Jacoby from Bright.
Oh, Bright, yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
Right. Yep.
yeah. So we did about 300 of these orc characters, which were a lot of fun. We designed them and created the appliances, and then brought in a team of, oh man, I think we had about 50 makeup artists. We had five or eight trailers for that show. Here's the little monkey boy.
Sorry, really quick. I'm assuming with something like that, were there different versions so that obviously I'll simply say the background versions simpler, so to speak, or was it okay?
We would have our A, B, and C versions. So this would be
depending on who they were. This is an A. Yep. Okay.
Multiple, pieces with lots of mobility, whereas the slip over the head masks look cool from a distance, but you wouldn't want to put them in the foreground. There's a little. This is a kid from Jumanji who cheated at the original.
Oh,
Jumanji.
right, the first Jumanji. That's cool.
Yeah. And then a variety of other little characters and things. This is something we did for Banksy. We did
wild.
We did a project for him that was the pet boutique and charcoal grill. So it was kind of a commentary on animals as food and as pets. And so this is one of the sculpts we did with a little Tweety bird who was catatonically swinging in a cage. We did about 20 different animatronic pieces for that.
I like him.
That's from Percy Jackson 2, I think.
Oh,
it was.
right.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Cyclops.
Just a design bust there, and then a study for Blob from X-Men.
Oh, from X-Men. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if everybody's related to Kevin Bacon, so that's Hollow Man.
Hollow Man. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. This was from the Vampire's Assistant. This was a Wolfman character that was kind of a comedic hillbilly Wolfman, I suppose. Oh, some tests. These are a variety of personal projects and things. Although that's from the My Favorite Martian from that Donald Petrie directed a few years back.
Years and years ago, before My Favorite Martian movie was made. I think, I can't remember. I don't think I was in the meeting, but my old writing partners went to a meeting where they were pitched My Favorite Martian, and the pitch went because they wanted them to write it, and they just said, it was like, what do you want it to be? And they said, we don't really care what it is. You just have to call it My Favorite Martian. Because they were like, we've never really seen the show. And they were like, we don't care as long as it's called My Favorite Martian.
That's really funny.
They did not take the job.
See, that is a very Corman-esque approach, isn't it? If you
we've got a great title. Yeah. I got the title. Yeah.
Here's a poster. Yeah. A poster and a title. That's all you need. Those are the days. There's a wolf predator from AVPR.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then the Queen. This was our version of the Queen head from AVPR. We added some little spines and little kind of things to distinguish her from the original. But this was the size of the third scale miniature that we built for that film.
That's wild.
And of course the Pred Alien.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Combo.
That's really cool. I mean, That my favorite part of those movies are the variations. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know what else to call them, but that's what I enjoy about those films. Yeah.
This is some personal work of mine for a little project that I've been noodling with and developing. But you can see we try to get the eyes to look convincing.
Yeah, gorgeous.
This was the maquette we did for the Pred Alien.
Wow. Nice.
That was turned into a collectible figure by Sideshow Collectibles.
Yeah.
And then this was from a very interesting project that's has its own history. That was a privately funded movie. It's very hard to explain. Someday that's its own podcast, I think. This is from the molds of the Alien 3 eggs.
I recognize that. Yes.
Yes, you do. And and this was the Tremors worm. This was out of the molds of the quarter scale Tremors worms that we
that's fantastic.
Made. Yeah,
that's great.
With a mouth that opens like a flower. And then this is something I did recently where we took a scan of my original sculpture of Goro, of his head.
Okay.
And then once it was in the digital world, we, with ZBrush, sculpted the rest of this. And this is just sort of an art piece that I had been wanting to do.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's actually
with the two sets of sort of hands. Yeah.
Yes, he's like cracking his knuckles, ready to
both
fight.
Sets.
Yeah. And this is just a print, a 3D print that we painted to look bronzy.
To look like a bronze, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's our...
Now, has anyone seen that yet to say, like, we got to sell those? We got to, like, we want to sell a version of that? A little sideshow action?
I posted it on Instagram, and, people are like, cool, but I haven't been contacted. I don't have the rights to the...
Of course, right.
So if it ends up in one of your offices at some point, know that it's totally illegal. These guys you might recognize.
Oh yeah, those are the what's his name, Swayze movie.
Point Break.
Point Break. Jeez.
Point Break. That's sort of the tour of this room.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Alec.
I say I don't care about them, but maybe I care more than I pretend. Because I do like making the stuff for sure, but I don't really like. Other than here, I don't really have a place to display these things. Oh look!
Yeah, but I mean,
Brian Urlacher.
Oh yeah,
Brian Urlacher. That was for a Neil Blomkamp.
Is that a commercial
project? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Neil did a commercial for Nike, I think, where they were being athletes were being assembled like action figures. So
that's cool.
We did a Michael Vick who fell out of favor. He's in the other room.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fantastic that you collect your own work. I mean, Dave and I struggle as we're collectors ourselves, but because we write, boring pages, it's hard to have a collection of scripts that's anything exciting. But I think if we did what you did, we would certainly keep our own stuff. I think our fascination was just, do you keep other people's stuff?
Yeah, no, I'm selfish like that, I think.
Yeah.
I like I'm in my own bubble. But you guys, you guys have a fun opportunity to keep the props from the shows that you produce and direct, and right? Like
you would think, but that's become harder and harder these days because
it feels like built into their model is the opportunity
and,
to like auction the stuff off. Or I guess the other version these days is always keeping everything because they need it for the sequel. I mean, again, I guess I'm talking about movies. Then getting to the sequel and deciding they don't want to use anything from the original movie.
Well, they hire a new director who doesn't want any of the shit from the guy that came before. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
Well, what you have to do is you have to get the people that made it to create the stuff out of the molds for you for the display pieces. I guess I won't say what I was going to say. I just worked on something.
You can say
I've done
it.
that.
Say it. Just whisper it. It's fine.
I will go out of my way to get filmmakers the stuff that came out of their brains, right? Writers and directors, none of it would exist if it were not for you guys conceptualizing it and putting 400 people to work. So you should have something for your wall. I do see some things, Ryan, behind you. I see a Batman.
Oh, yeah, this is all other people's work, but yeah, I mean, this is the stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that I grew up idolizing. You know, my own collection. But yeah, I mean, I love all that stuff. I mean, I think someday we got, you know, I got a combination of we need it for the sequel and it's an asset for the future museum. So I got hit from both ends on the show. And look, you know, I'm still making it. It's still around. I get to you know, play with it every day. So it's there. And I think eventually I'll be able to, you know, take some stuff home.
There are molds of these things, you know, maybe costumes are a little more difficult because
costumes are a little more difficult.
Yeah. But you know, props and things, there are molds.
Yeah, I know. And,
we'll you know, there. Artists are always, you know, freelance artists have a hard life. So if somebody slips them a little cash to make a duplicate of I'm just saying, you're actually doing the industry a favor.
We do understand it. I think, unfortunately, our sickness is that we want the one that was on the set, one on screen. Which is where the crazy begins, both in terms of the mania, but also in the wallet. That's the problem. Yes. But such is life. Yeah. This was incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing,
Alex, so much. This was just great. I think people are going to be wowed. We always like to end our episodes with this game that we like to play. And I know you're not a collector, but I think we'll sort of pretend you were, and let's go down that path for a second. 'Cause we always like to pick a movie and sort of say, what would you want from it? And I know that's a very sort of like, again, your brain may not work that way because you don't necessarily want something, but if we were to focus in, and I was thinking about, Ryan, what you said before, like on Harryhausen or something, if we said to you, you could have from any Harryhausen movie, whatever, a prop, a sketch, a design, a costume, whatever, that would just be, you know, a nice little thing for your office somewhere. Could you wrestle your way to pick something, do you think? Could you land on something to pick?
I was really fortunate to visit Ray in 1991 in his London house, and got to go upstairs to see his cabinets with all his stuff in it. Yep. And I my jaw just dropped because it was like everything that you could want. You know, Talos was there, the skeletons were there. He had parts from the Hydra and all that stuff. I think I would probably, if I was to have something of Harryhausen's, it would probably be a piece of 2D art because there's something about the 2D art that is, you know, when I was seeing it in magazines and in his book when I was a kid and trying to imitate it and draw it, that art looks exactly like what's on the page. Things that are made out of rubber begin to fall apart and decompose. And I think that, to me, I know a lot of people love that. They love to see, you know, the armature through the rubber and all that. I don't know why I don't like it. It feels like it's a disease or something. Yeah. You know, and it reminds you it just makes me sad. Yeah. So I get that,
but more importantly, the art is incredible. I mean, the art is incredible, and you know, it's funny. A couple of those pieces showed up a couple of years ago, and so there's still a couple odds and ends bouncing around. But you get to see the vision. I mean, you look at that art and you just go, "That is the movie." Like it's not.
I know that I would know that drawing came from the hand of Ray Harryhausen. Right. Like, you know, he did have sculptors. He sculpted, but he did have sculptors working for him. He had people, you know, doing various steps along the way that, you know, but that came from his hand. And he was like, to me, he's like in a way, like, you know, he's an auteur. He's like a monster auteur for me, because he was conceiving the projects. He would draw his 5 or 7 key frames. He would use that to get the funding. He would hire a director who was clearly subservient to him, you know,
right.
And he would develop the projects and all that. And even though he wasn't directing, he was still every bit the auteur, I think. And when I got to know him later in his life, he was really a firebrand. He was like, and a massive dude. I think he was probably 6'3" when he was in his 80s, you know, and his hands were huge too, to do such delicate work. And he was sitting in one of these chairs I don't know which one. I should know that. And we were asking him about how, what it was like. And he started going on a tirade about ignorant producers. And he was slamming his hand and going, and they don't know their asses from a hole in the ground. And this was like, 97 or something. And the guy's like still feeling it from 30, 40 years prior. But I love that about him. So yeah, that's probably what I would ask.
And I'm just going to push a little bit more and go, so piece of art, what movie would it be from? Do you have a fave?
Well, I love Mysterious Island.
Okay.
Mysterious Island is really, I don't know why that's not talked about more as one of his great ones. And then but I also love 20 Million Miles to Earth. So because that was so creepy. That's one of the creepier ones. Also because my dad would let me watch these. He'd wake me up and say, hey, there's a because my dad knew who Ray Harryhausen was. He knew something about effects. There's a Harryhausen movie on. You got to watch. And so I'd be like, it'd be 10 o'clock at night, and I will have been asleep for 2 hours. So I'm groggy, looking at these weird images, and they're messing with my brain.
That's excellent.
So it might be from one of those two.
All right, Ryan, how about you? Where you go? Which direction are you going?
I'm going to be the most basic. Most basic dude about this, but I want one of the skeletons. To me, because I grew up after the Harryhausen era, so I feel like I grew up with all the people. Did
you, Ryan? Did you watch them like on Channel 9?
They were definitely around, and Clash of the Titans was the big one for me, which I feel like that's kind of later in the run. It's not his movies, but he's doing. He's doing the effects work. So I was definitely aware, and I knew the name. I think I associated the name with the stop motion stuff. But I feel like I grew up with the people like Alec, who were the generation that idolized Harryhausen and then did their own effects. Just like
they were referencing it.
We didn't grow up with John Wayne and John Ford and the Searchers. We grew up with all the guys that loved the Searchers and then made their Searchers movies. So I just go back to what's the sort of silhouette, the icon from that era, and that to me is the little skeleton, the warrior skeleton with the sword and the shield. What about you, Dave?
I have no problem with skeleton, by the way, and I definitely was thinking about it. And I'm just old enough that because we didn't have cable, basically Sunday mornings and like Saturday afternoons, this is what like the local affiliates just played. You know what I mean? Or like on the ABC afternoon movie, they would sometimes do like a Harryhausen week. So I got to see these because you didn't have the choice. You know what I mean? There were no choices. There were 5 channels, and you had to watch what was on one of them. So, I kind of came at it that way, and I'm not sure my dad knew who Harryhausen was, but he got a kick out of those kinds of movies and whatnot. So I do kind of want to go skeleton, but I am a sucker, and I will say I did love Clash of the Titans, even though when I go back to it, it does not exactly hold up. And I love Bubo the Owl. So because you said skeleton, I'm going to say Bubo the Owl, because I know Harryhausen, that was in his cabinet of curiosities. He's traveled it around to like some of the Harryhausen exhibits, and that would be pretty incredible just to have. So I'm going to pick
that's just an amazing work of art. Yeah. Well, there you go.
All right.
We started with Harryhausen. We came all the way back around to it. So there you go.
Beautiful. That's you guys. That's you guys at Writer's Minds. You've bookended it.
Alec, thank you so much. This was fantastic. We're going to bring you back. We're going to force you against your will to come back again sometime. It'll be really fun.
Open invitation to the studio if you guys want to come by. And also, by the way, this studio in Northridge is about a mile away from where Stan's studio was when I started for Stan, where we did the LA work for Aliens. In fact, have you seen the video of the trash bag queen?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that there?
I can take you to the alley where we did that.
That's hilarious.
That should be like a national heritage site. In England,
so.
When a great artist dies, Jim Henson just finally got his plaque. Karl Marx was across the street from our writer's office where we wrote season 2, and I would stare out the window of the writer's room, and it was like Karl Marx lived and worked here, and I was like, is this a good thing? But we should have the garbage bag alien queen was given birth in this alley.
That's a good idea. I might. I could make a plaque and just
Yeah, I think if
midnight,
you just made it and
I just go
attached
epoxy
it,
put
who
it
would
to
the
know?
wall.
Yeah, who would know? Yeah.
Yeah.
On
I
the,
feel
like
on the
you should-
spot.
Yeah, I feel like there should be one for there, and then one for the old like egg company ILM, wherever the old ILM was, where like the parking lot where they did like
Yep.
the
Death
shots of the Death
Dumpster
Star.
hot tubs.
There's just be something in that parking lot, whatever it is now. They're all probably In-N-Out burgers or something. but
Valjean,
yeah, so be it,
Valjean
yeah.
Avenue. Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Alec, if people want to find you, are you on Instagram or something
am.
of that nature?
I'm Alec_Gillis.
Very good.
And we have a YouTube channel.
Go for it.
This is the ADI YouTube channel. It's called Studio ADI's channel on YouTube,
Cool.
and we have over 300 historical, archival BTS videos up. I don't know. We're in the 80 million views or something. But it's a great
Well, with
practical
this
effect.
podcast's help, I think we can get you to 80,000,006.
230 more.
Yeah.
Everyone is welcome.
Yeah,
I
very
appreciate
good.
it.
Well, you can follow us on at Props Podcast on all social platforms. You can email us at dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com. And join us next week when we will be back with another story for you on the stuff dreams are made of.